Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you had a blissful weekend and a great start to the new week. We do have a $1 million question today. Are you safe? We will be joined later on by an expert who can speak to that. The Director, Cybercrime Directorate, Interpol, will be in studio with us. But before that, let's take a look at what is coming up tonight.
Rwanda's government has announced that the country has been able to achieve its goal of ensuring that forests cover 30% of its territory.
And different experts from the African continent have noted that information sharing is key in fighting cyber crimes.
Energy experts have pointed out that sensitization on the functions affiliated with nuclear energy could help many countries achieve development in aspects like agriculture and healthcare. Thank you very much for being with us on this particular edition of Rwanda Television News. My name is Sam Kalisa.
And I'm Isabel Masozera. Now on to our top story. Rwanda's government has announced that the country has been able to achieve its goal of ensuring that forests cover 30% of its territory. Now the announcement was made by the Prime Minister of Rwanda on Monday as he officially opened the Africa Protected Areas Congress convening in Kigali to discuss the protection and conservation of biodiversity in Africa.
More than 2,000 delegates are attending the conference, and while officially opening it, the Rwandan Prime Minister urged African countries not to drag their feet when it comes to implementing measures geared towards the protection and conservation of biodiversity on the continent. The Congress was opened after the inauguration of the Nyandungu Eco Park, an urban wetland that was restored and repurposed for wildlife conservation and ecotourism.
We launched the Nyandungu Ecotourism Park. This urban wetland has been transformed from a degraded wetland to an educational and recreational facility. But as much as the tourism income is vital for Rwanda, this is not what primarily drives us in our conservation efforts. We are driven by the fact that conservation of biodiversity and sustaining our economy, our ecosystem, are key enablers in our promoting green and sustainable development. From our different green initiatives, Rwanda has now achieved its target of more than 30% of national forest cover. Excellencies, distinguished guests, in protecting and conserving this diversity.
The first ever Africa Protected Areas Congress is being attended by dignitaries that include Niger's former president, His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou, and Ethiopia's former Prime Minister, Hailemariam Desalegn. The creation of the Nyandungu Eco Park provided employment for 4,000 people and saw the planting of more than 17,000 trees, and currently has more than 62 different types of plant species and more than 100 types of birds.
Thank you, Serge, for the report. And moving ahead, different experts from the African continent have noted that information sharing is key in fighting cybercrimes. This was highlighted at the start of the 5-day Africa Working Group meeting on cybercrime for heads of units here in Kigali. Betty Mutoni filed this report.
Figures from Rwanda Investigation Bureau indicate that between 2019 and 2021, more than 550 crimes using technology were reported, amounting to more than 2 billion Rwandan francs.
So one case that I know that happened recently, I think a couple of years ago, where some hackers tried to enter a customer's account in one of the banks in around here in the industry, and the bank found out that was happening, that the money had been actually transferred from the client's account, and the money was still in the clearing system at the point of clearing. So when they realized that, they stopped the money at the point of the central bank.
Someone called me in the morning and he told me that he had sent me some money on my SIM card by mistake. And because I'm aware of such tricks used by thieves, I told him that MTN would handle the matter. But when they call people who are not aware of their methods, they may end up sending them their own money thinking the claim is genuine.
Cybercrimes are on the increase, with each passing year with different methods used, from mobile phone transactions to those carried out in the banking sector. The Director of Cybercrime Directorate at Interpol, Mr. Jones, noted that the thieves who use technology while stealing use different strategies to make sure that their goals are achieved.
Then look at the financial side of this. They're able to get onto the systems, get onto those financial records, access finances, access the ability that companies have to pay. Now, that's a technical attack, but also we see the social engineering attacks as well, where criminals and fraudsters pretend to be representing those companies. And that's such as business email compromise, where they're able to compromise a company and take money from those companies effectively by pretending to be someone else.
A total of 128 theft cases were reported in Rwanda in 2019. The following year, 168. And by 2021, the number of such thefts had increased to 254. Rwanda's Minister of Justice, who is also the country's Attorney General, Dr. Emmanuel Ugirashebuja, stresses that the cooperation of various institutions in the exchange of information will be the greatest weapon in fighting cybercrime.
Really appreciate that Africa is coming out and meeting in order to look at strategies to deal with cyber crimes. Because as I earlier pointed out, cyber crimes are crimes which are transboundary. You cannot only be able to handle them or deal with them as one state or one country. You do need the support of other countries, as well as the cooperation of agencies in charge of investigating or even protecting cyber crimes. So we do hope that this meeting will come out with very important strategies and outcomes on how to prevent cybercrime, but also to be able to protect, to prosecute the crime once it happens.
Figures indicate that 200 million Rwandan francs were stolen in 2019 using these types of methods, as well as 190,000 US dollars the following year. 1 billion Rwandan francs were stolen, plus 400,000 US dollars, and last year 400 million Rwandan francs were stolen, plus an addition of 40,000 US dollars. Betty Mutoni, RwandaTV News.
Thank you, Betty. Now, still on matters of cybercrimes and cybersecurity, one unfortunate click and you could find yourself exposed to the notorious, almost impossible to detect criminals waiting to cause you harm. Now, again, like I said earlier, the $1 million question remains, how can we stay safe? Today, we turn to an expert in the area of cybercrime investigation and capabilities development, Mr. Craig Jones, who is the Director, Cybercrimes Directorate at Interpol. Director, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much, Isabella and Sam. It's great to be here and it's great to be in Kigali in Rwanda.
Are you loving the country so far?
So far, it's my first visit, and so far, really, really excellent hosts, and everything is going very, very smoothly for us. Thank you.
Right. Now, just to kick us off and for perspective, let's start with you helping us understand, first of all, because there might be people wondering, what is cybercrime? And what are these people? Who are these people? Where do they come from that threaten our very well-being? Could you just shed more light on that?
Of course. When we look at crime, we look at the traditional crime types, the physical crimes that take place. When someone breaks into a house or someone breaks into a bank or a commercial premises, cybercrime is exactly the same, but it's just in that online space. So the criminals are able to break into computers, to networks. If there are vulnerabilities on those computers and networks, they go after individuals, they go after companies, and the main motivation behind cybercrime is the financial gain for the criminals.
Mm-hmm. So I guess what you're telling me is it's the money mostly that they're looking after, they're looking for.
Absolutely. The cyber criminals, they're in it for the money.
Okay. Now, the red thread throughout the opening ceremony speeches at the 9th Africa Working Group on Cyber Crime for heads of units was the need to collaborate, and the need for countries to come together. But in your opinion, why is international cooperation in terms of combating cyber crime, specifically here in the African region, important?
So when law enforcement look to combat any type of crime, they have to come together. They have to work directly in those communities. When a crime is committed locally, the police respond locally. Cybercrime is different. The crimes take place from different countries using infrastructure, using tools and techniques to commit those crimes. The criminals won't even be in the countries in the majority of the times when they're committing those crimes. So that's why we have meetings such as this initially, and this is the 9th meeting now, where we bring together the heads of those units to discuss these matters, look at the current trends, but understand the threats. And we've done that recently in our cybercrime threat assessment for Africa, where we identify the threats, then we come up with strategies and training to support the countries in combating cybercrime.
Mr. Craig, well said with the importance of African countries coming together, but what are the tools you are leveraging to strengthen operational capacity among member countries?
So it's like any model. We look at people, process and technology. We look at the people. So who are the people that we can work with in law enforcement, but also in the private sector, because a lot of the information that the police need are in the private sector. We then need that technology. So we need to have the ability to connect globally law enforcement to share information and data and cooperate. And those are the sort of things that we need to place in now, and that's what we're building at Interpol. And we have a number of trainings this week and next week in Kigali to support officers and staff in combating and preventing cybercrime.
All right, we would just say that no country is an island mostly when it comes to investigation, but we can ask, what are you really doing to create a trust among member countries so that they can freely share information?
So this is where we need some honest conversations. We need to have those honest conversations between law enforcement to ensure that we understand the needs. What are the vulnerabilities that we have in law enforcement? And then what are the tools that we need to build and bring law enforcement together in order to prevent cybercrime, detect cybercrime, investigate cybercrime, and disrupt cybercrime. And it's the criminals that we intend to go after. So the criminals that are online, the police now are having the tools, we're coming together, and we are going to come after those criminals.
Director, one of the things that I had, going on even in the story that we just shared earlier is the call on countries to work together, not only just sharing information, but building trust and being able to do the things that investigating, and not just investigating, but preventing before it happens, detecting beforehand can be done. Let's talk about how you're able to do that, because some countries might be willing to work together, might have that trust already established. There are some countries that might be a little bit on the edge. How do you deal with such situations to be able to really work together in ensuring the outcome that you want?
So what we first of all have to do is to ensure that countries have national cybercrime strategies. They have to understand how they're going to prioritise their resources. Then we need to bring the countries together. Interpol is a neutral organisation with 195 member countries. We have that ability to connect the countries together using the tools and platforms which are secure. That allows us to exchange data and information, but it also allows us to bring law enforcement together with private partners. We can make those connections. We identify the criminals, we go after them, and we arrest them in the communities where they're committing the crimes.
It's interesting that you talk about communities. I've heard you speak about the trickle-down effect from global to local when it comes to impact. Could you expound a little bit on that?
So the global threat pictures that we see have different regional and national perspectives as well. So the ability for Interpol to be able to carry out those regional threat assessments that I've said, and then share that out into the regions. That then combined with the national strategy of the regions helps law enforcement, but more importantly the governments and the communities to come up with plans, to come up with those sorts of objectives. What are they looking to achieve? Certainly in the cybercrime area, one of the main areas we have to improve on is prevention. We to look at the basic prevention steps that need to be taken by companies in protecting their data and their infrastructure, raising awareness in the communities about the threats that they possibly face and what steps they can make to make themselves safer.
All right. Now, in the interest of time, unfortunately, we have to leave the conversation here. But within just 2 seconds, as we wrap up, what has been the biggest lesson that you have derived from this meeting as African countries come together and Friends of Africa to talk about how to put an end to cyber crimes?
So what we're seeing here is a real willingness of the countries to come together. We have over 43 countries at this meeting. This is the biggest single meeting that I've had for cybercrime globally in the 3 years that I've been director. We also look at the training that is going on here with over 22 countries involved in that training, which will then lead into a surge activity in the next couple of weeks where the countries will be working together doing prevention, detection, investigation and disruption of those cyber criminals.
All right, Mr. Craig Jones, the Director of Cyber Crime Directorate at the Interpol, thank you very much for your time tonight on Rwanda Television News.
Thank you very much indeed.
All right, and we'll kick it off with matters related to education. More than 220,000 students in Rwanda have begun their primary leaving national examinations, and officials in the country's Ministry of Education have urged parents and guardians to ensure that the children do not miss on any of their exams. More on this report.
At national level, the Minister of Education, Dr. Valentine Uwamaria, officiated the start of the exams at Groupe Scolaire Nyagasambu in the Eastern Province, where 633 students are sitting their PLEs. And she urged the students to have confidence in their abilities and the knowledge their teachers imparted to them, and called on parents to make sure that their children do not miss any of their exams. The students did express confidence when sitting for the exams. The exam was well prepared, and the preparatory tests provided by our school leading up to these exams were also prepared well. It was not uncommon to find things in there that you did not study, but I cannot say that was the case this time around. The Minister of Education also commended the fact that the academic year went well, unlike the previous one that was negatively affected by measures to fight the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic. 229,859 students are registered to sit for the primary leaving examinations, 126,342 of them girls. They come from 3,556 schools and are doing the exams in 1,095 centers.
You're still watching RTV News. Now, 22 minors incarcerated at Nyagatare Juvenile Prison have also sat for their national exams, and they've thanked the government of Rwanda for this opportunity to continue with their studies despite the difficulties with the law in the past. They say they are confident about the way they are prepared for the PLEs. Take a look.
The students joined others at Groupe Scolaire Nyagatare to sit for their primary leaving examinations, and they told us that they are confident about the way they prepared. The exam I did today was easy because we came properly prepared. It was very easy, and I know we will all pass because we were all well taught. The children are mature enough to understand the importance of being given an opportunity to continue their studies even while incarcerated. Studying is not difficult for us because when we are in class, we are not treated as inmates and are expected to perform just as well as children on the outside. The government has done all it can to give us equal opportunities. We are grateful to be able to study, even though we are locked up. When we committed those crimes and were caught, we thought that was it for us. And being given the opportunity to study makes us very happy. Juvenile inmates began sitting for national exams in 2016, and this is the 5th group to do so, composed of 22 sitting for their PLEs and another 10 who will be sitting for their O-level examinations soon, one of them a girl. All of the children from the Nyagatare Juvenile Prison who have sat for their exams since 2018 have passed and gone on to get a presidential pardon, allowing them to continue their higher education in regular schools. They perform astonishingly well, always in the first and second divisions, because of the way they are motivated for a second chance in society. The Nyagatare Juvenile Prison was opened in 2009 and currently has 451 inmates, 31 of whom are girls. All are enrolled in either primary, secondary or TVET schools.
Now to matters related to energy. Energy experts have pointed out that sensitization on the functions affiliated with nuclear energy could help many countries achieve development in their aspects like agriculture and healthcare, because this has already begun to yield results in some parts of the world. Precious Hidezi filed this report.
When the term nuclear energy is uttered, most people immediately think of bombs, but there is more to it than that. Aside from being weaponized for war, nuclear energy has been used for the betterment of different things, such as healthcare advancements and prevention of crop diseases, to mention but a few. The principal of the College of Science and Technology at the University of Rwanda and the head of the Afra Nuclear Energy Initiative has emphasized on what a long way the world has come in the effective use of technology, including the use of nuclear energy, to solve existing problems.
In regard to nuclear energy, many countries have the same problems in common, such as healthcare, agriculture, and water management, which are global challenges currently faced by the world. AFRA was created to unite Africans as they explore solutions to contain or put an end to those problems.
The use of nuclear energy hasn't reached its full potential on the African continent, despite 46 countries having engaged in a forum that broadly portrays its impact through shared experiences. The Minister of Infrastructure says that the fact that there are Rwandans completing their studies on the use of nuclear energy will increase the use of its energy resources, considering not knowing how they're operated won't be an issue anymore.
There are many Rwandans who are studying it. There are about 100 in Russia who will finish it by the 8th of next month. There are those in South Korea and elsewhere. Those are the future and help us in every way. And we continue to work with IAEA to build staff capacity. You have heard that they are helping to go on to study for masters and PhDs.
Although the use of nuclear energy hasn't reached the peak of its potential, the Ministry of Infrastructure commends the tangible results it has already begun to yield in the country.
This nuclear technology is being used to treat cancer in some hospitals. It is being used in agriculture, and we are looking at how this type of energy can be used in electricity production, because of the problems that arise with climate change, like rivers drying up and unclear rainfall patterns. With nuclear energy, we do not have to worry about that because it is reliable.
The Deputy Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency has placed emphasis on the fact that nuclear energy is not a tool for warfare and pointed out that it could be instrumental in peacekeeping and development projects with global collaboration intact.
Reiterating agency commitment to assisting Afra state parties to achieve the Africa they want, with reference to the African Union Agenda 2063. I myself addressed the Afra Committee at their second annual meeting last year in November in Vienna, and their first annual meeting this year in May. I consider Afra is my highest priority.
A 5-day meeting is being held in Kigali to review the status of African countries in regards to the use of nuclear energy in community development. The delegates from 46 African countries will also analyze some of the barriers standing in the way of nuclear energy, especially those related to infrastructure and to be used legally and with minimal consequence to the globe. Precious Chidezi, RTV News.
Thank you, Precious. Now, while presenting to the plenary session of the Chamber of Deputies an analysis of the National Investment Policy for 2017, the Parliamentary Committee on Economy and Trade pointed out the need to find a lasting solution for investors who are given investment grace periods and incentives and later on stop their investment activities after the period instead of starting to pay taxes. More in this report.
In 2017, the government of Rwanda introduced an investment facilitation policy aimed at helping new investors by giving them a grace period before they are subjected to taxation. MPs say there is need to revise this policy as some investors halt their activities after the grace period.
Projects that are given incentives and are later closed, I would like to know, are they for Rwandans or foreigners, or are part of youth investment projects, 80% of which collapse after they have just started? I want to know the category of these projects that die after the taxation period has reached.
Although the committee did not get into the deep analysis of this issue, Honorable Munyanjeo Theogene, the chairperson of the Parliamentary Committee on Economy and Trade, points out the basics on finding a solution to this issue. Whenever there are loopholes in laws, traders profit on it. That is what happens. Some traders exploit these loopholes, but also some projects lack appropriate studies. Other issues facing investment in Rwanda include the issue of commercial buildings that cost owners a lot of money but are not rented.
The other issue is some traders came together and built commercial buildings like Sheikh, Meek, and others. Some of these traders built these buildings on mortgages, but there are no people to rent in those buildings. How will they be helped? Because they're supposed to pay their loans, but they do not have customers.
The committee chairperson urged the parliament to set laws that can protect owners of these commercial buildings from losses. The issues in this sector are wide and might affect our economy, be it on the side of banks and traders. What needs to be done is putting them under consideration of the Economic Recovery Fund. MPs are the ones who established the laws, and I think we can revise them and see if they can be helped in any way. Other loopholes highlighted in this analysis of the Economy and Trade Committee on the National Investment Policy for 2017 include the issue of designated industrial zones in different parts of the country, but no basic infrastructure have been availed in those areas. And this brings us to the end of our tonight's edition. Many thanks for being with us. My name is Sam Kalisa.
And I'm Isabel Masozera. We hope that you learned a thing or two from our conversation earlier with the cybercrimes expert on how you can keep safe. Other than that, we leave it here. Stay with RTV and we'll see you soon.
Goodbye.